Pretty soon we'll have a whole church full of crawlers and some new ones on the way. That's right, his baby brother. He didn't want us to forget. He's got a baby brother on the way. And that we have it. What a blessing and joy and a reminder of what is truly happiness and what is truly meaningful in our lives. But the innocence of children. But during the 3-week journey to define and discover what true happiness is, we've uncovered that it's easy to say, but hard to do. The ultimate goal for all of us is to build a sustainable life full of happiness, full of joy, full of satisfaction. And happiness in itself is not sustainable or even satisfying because it is always connected or fused into happenings. Just this past week, several times I was doing great. I was truly happy. Life could not have gotten any better. And then in a matter of minutes, my life kind of got turned upside down. I went from because I'm happy, to don't worry, be happy, to blues, despair, and agony on me. I mean, I went like that, just that fast. And it's all tied into what just happened. I mean, my happiness was gone. And I miss it. And I know it will come back to me someday. But it's just not sustainable. Happiness in life is not and will never be sustainable. So we search. We strive. We struggle to find something more. Something deeper. Anything that will get us through the happenings and look at life with a wider lens, if you will. And the best example we have in the Old Testament is King Solomon. And King Solomon was the heir, as I said with the children, to King David. He was credited for ruling only 39 years. 39 years. As an 18-year-old, that seemed old and for a long time. As a 46-year-old, 39 years is nothing. I can honestly say I've got t-shirts older than that. He was credited in a time for building this huge temple in Jerusalem. He conquered more land than anyone else. Scholars have estimated that if you did a market analysis or comparison, he acquired more wealth than anyone that has ever walked this planet. The Talmud calls him one of the greatest, most inspiring prophets of all time. He had over 700 wives. So you know he had good time management skills at the least. He's recognized as a vital figure of 3 of the top religions in the world. Christianity, Islam, Judaism, all recognize King Solomon for what he's done. And when he asked God what he would like, when God asked Solomon what he would like, Solomon said, wisdom. Wisdom. So we need to realize that no one on this earth has made more money, has achieved more, has accomplished more, has invaded or conquered more lands, or had married more women than Solomon. And at the end of his life, here is what Solomon says. It is found in the Old Testament book of Ecclesiastes, and if you would turn or join us on the screen or the back of your bulletin, this book is known for and defines the meaning of life. Throughout thousands of years, people turn to the book of Ecclesiastes and it's King Solomon's words of what is the true meaning of life. And so if you will, join me in the last chapter, the 12th chapter of the book of Ecclesiastes, beginning with the first verse. At the end of his life, Solomon writes, "Remember your Creator in the days of your youth, before the days of trouble come and the years approach when you will say, I find no pleasure in them. Before the sun and the light and the moon and the stars grow dark, and the clouds return after the rain, when the keepers of the household tremble and the strong men stoop, when the grinders cease because they are few, and those looking through the windows grow dim, when the doors to the street street are closed and the sound of the grinding fades, when people rise up at the sound of birds, but all their songs grow faint. When people are afraid of heights and of dangers in the streets, when the almond trees blossom and the grasshopper drags itself along and despair no longer is stirred, then the people go to their eternal home, and mourners go about the streets. Remember him. Before the silver cord is severed and the golden bowl is broken, before the pitcher is shattered at the spring and the wheel broken at the well, the dust returns to the ground it came from, and the spirits return to God who gave it. Meaningless. Meaningless, says the teacher. Everything is meaningless. Solomon says at the end of my life, everything that I look back on, everything was meaningless. My success, meaningless. My possessions, meaningless. My money, meaningless. My accomplishments, meaningless. The pleasure I have of having 700 wives, meaningless. I mean, you know, it has to be pleasure because if one wife upsets you, you've got 699 more. Or if two are mad at you, you've got 698 more. He says it's meaningless. He says chasing all this is like chasing the wind. And if we spend our entire life chasing after happiness, everything in our life will become meaningless. He says God doesn't want happiness for us. He wants something deeper, something more sustainable, something more filling. It's kind of like I love Chinese food. I eat Chinese food all the time. And I can eat a huge plate of my favorite Chinese food, and my belly can be full and extended. And then 15 minutes later, what happens? I'm hungry again. It's just not sustainable for the long haul called life. And happiness is like that. And God created us, though, to have a joyful life. And that's what He wants. God's desire for us is to live a fulfilled life. And happiness is grounded on happenings. And when things are good, we're happy. And when things are bad, we're not happy. But being fulfilled comes from something deeper inside of us. It's an overpouring of joy. It's a fulfilled life. And this whole sermon series can be summed up. And our goal should be for our life is to live an outrageous, sustainable, fulfilled, joyous life. And when we can do that, when we can learn to do that on a consistent basis, it sets us free. We don't have to ride this roller coaster of emotions, of highs and lows, and happy and sad. And when I look around of the people that I come in contact with, and I take a moment and I kind of calm myself down, and when I look into their eyes and I listen to their words, I feel that most people are not living a fulfilled life. I mean, there just seems to be something missing. I don't know what that is, but there's something missing. I mean, there seems to be no real joy. And we live in this culture that wants a quick fix to everything. I mean, but fulfillment, true fulfillment takes time and extreme effort. It doesn't come overnight, and it takes work because it's more about a lifestyle and a lifestyle change than it is of a stream of happy events that seem to just come along. The good news is there is a formula. There is a formula that if we dare to apply to our lives, we find that fulfillment will come. The formula starts with Jesus Christ. And there's no other way than Jesus Christ. If there was another way, I would tell you. But there's not. And I implore you to find the most joyful, fulfilled life person that you personally know right now. Just think about that person that's in your life, or you've known, or have already come and gone. And I would bet that whether it was public or not, they had a strong relationship with Jesus Christ. I bet you that they have this deep spirituality that's based on a purpose, that's related to God. Because in my time on this earth, I have never met one single person that said to me, you know, following Jesus, you know what? When I made that commitment to follow Jesus, that was the biggest mistake of my life. I have never heard those words from anybody I've ever met. And I challenge you now to go home and read the Gospel of Matthew. It's the first Gospel that tells about the story of our Savior Jesus Christ. I implore you to do that. And if you find it full, if you find that Gospel full of bad stuff, if you find it full of negative stuff, if you find it full of hate speech, if you find racism in there, if you find negativity, then quit. Quit. Don't come back here. Give up your relationship with Jesus Christ. I beg you to do that. Because everything about Jesus Christ is fulfilling. Every single thing. In the Gospel of John, in chapter 10, verse 10, Jesus says, I have come so that you may have life, and that life will be full. And have you ever thought about the reason why we pursue happiness instead of joy? It's because something's missing. There's something missing. There's a void in our life, and we're trying to fulfill it. I mean, it's kind of like the alleyway back in the back. I mean, we fill it with holes, and about 5 cars go down the alleyway, and we've got our craters open back up to China. Does anybody come in back this way?
Yeah, I agree.
That's what it's like. We cover it for a little while, but it doesn't fill it up. It doesn't sustain it. It doesn't hold it. It's the void. And God says, look, I want to fill that void. I see that void in your life. Adam and Eve at the beginning of creation had everything. They desired nothing. They walked among the presence of God daily. And then this thing called sin happened, and it placed a gap. It placed a distance between us and God. And so God sent His Son, Jesus Christ, to bridge that gap, to build a permanent bridge that nothing in this world can destroy. God said, through my Son, Jesus Christ, I have cleaned you of your sins. I have forgot about it. And I have reserved a place for you in heaven. And if you ever made that decision to follow Jesus, then nothing can cancel and nothing can take away that reservation for you in heaven. And none of us follow Jesus perfectly. I mean, we all stumble. We all fall down. But once you make that decision, it's the greatest decision you will ever make. But it doesn't stop there. That's just the beginning of the formula. You see, the next step is one that we all cringe when I say it. But it's obedience. I mean, faith by itself, without good deeds, without actions of compassion, faith by itself, without mercy, is useless. I mean, faith without actions is just a bunch of useless words that we can say by sitting on our couch eating Cheetos. It takes obedience. And obedience, I understand, is a word that in today's society can take on a very negative overtone. But obedience is simply saying, God, I'm going to try. I'm going to try my best to do it your way. To live my life the way you would want me to live it. And the formula of a fulfilled life is a combination of seeking God and serving God. Because in the eyes of God, serving and loving are synonyms. And it's a big step to find that ultimate satisfaction. That joy that can only fill us and fill that void in our life. And that joy that we are missing. So my prayer is that the goal you pursue from this season forward is one of an outrageously satisfying, fulfilled, joyful life. Will you pray with me?